Documenting war crimes of volunteers, presented by Giancarlo Fiorella. Giancarlo is the Director of Research and Training at Bellingcat, a non-profit organization that works with open source data to investigate war crimes and other types of wrongdoings. He will be talking about how Bellingcat mobilizes a volunteer community to help document war crimes and other atrocities in conflict zones across the world.
Thank you. I like that this one. Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. You cannot start screen. Yes, thank you. And it's 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and then we'll have time for Q&A.
Excellent. Just cut me off if. Well, first of all, thank you everybody for being here this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. I am Giancarlo Fiorella, as you've heard. I have a couple of jobs. I'm an assistant professor at Utrecht University in the Netherlands, where I'm teaching investigative research methods for human rights investigations at a place called the Global Justice Investigations Lab. Really exciting space, and really fortunate to be a part of that. I'm also the Director of Research and Training at Bellingcat, which is this really exciting organization I'll be talking to you about today. Yeah, let me just do that over here. So I'm going to blaze through a talk that I might normally give in about an hour. So I'm going to go through it as quickly as possible. As you're going to see, I'm really passionate about this topic. This is something that's really exciting to me. I've been doing this work for a couple of years, and it's just, I think it's incredible. It's highly impactful. It has the ability to change the world. We have seen it time and again with Bellingcat's investigations. And so I'm going to get really excited and talk really quickly, probably. I hope you stick around for the breakout groups, and maybe we can even talk afterwards, because there's lots of stuff to cover. So what is Bellingcat? Bellingcat is a nonprofit organization based in the Netherlands that works with what we call open source information. That is information that is freely available on the internet for anybody to discover and analyze and write about. For example, pictures from conflict zones. If anybody's watched the news over the last couple of years, unfortunately, lots of conflicts. A lot of people have cell phones anywhere you go in the world, right? And if something horrible happens, people will record it, just as we might record something horrible that happens here if we are unfortunate enough to live through it or witness it, and they share it on social media. Videos pop up on Telegram, on X, on Blue Sky, on Discord, showing every unimaginable horror that people can do to other people. And so Bellingcat is very good at discovering that kind of material. Again, these are videos, these are pictures, these are data sets that are freely available on the internet that anyone can find. And we're very good at analyzing them and working through them. Am I not sharing that? Yeah, sorry, let me share the screen here. Thank you for that. So Bellingcat is excellent at doing that work, at detecting that kind of information, and then analyzing it and working through it. Does it work now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Looks good.
And you can see, okay, here we go. Great. So this is a screenshot from our website. I think it's still current. We did an investigation, a huge joint investigation recently having to do with the killing of journalists in Gaza, drone journalists. So there is a thing called a drone journalist. So there are folks in Gaza who are reporting on the destruction and the devastation that's going on there using drones. So they'll fly drones around areas that are impacted by the conflict. And we were a part of a huge consortium of international news organizations that tracked the targeting and the killing of these journalists over time. We've also recently published an investigation into also the killing of aid workers by the IDF in Gaza as well. We conducted a very, I would say, in-depth and innovative analysis of bullet shots, gunshots that were heard in this video to determine the distance from which they were fired and other factors relating to this crime. And we do this kind of work frequently. So we're often working with information like, for example, videos from conflict zones, war crimes, et cetera. Not exclusively, We also work a lot with disinformation. So, somebody will be propounding some kind of argument online using a video or a picture. We will analyze it and we'll say, actually, this video has been staged and this is why you know. So Bellingcat, really exciting project, as I said. 10 years ago when we started doing this, nobody else was doing this in a kind of an organized way, but now lots of people are. So you may be familiar with the visual investigations team of the New York Times. They are our brothers and sisters. They do the same kind of work that we do. The Washington Post has a visual forensics unit. BBC has BBC Verify. The Wall Street Journal is launching its own visual investigation unit. The CBC also has one, which I'm really excited about. And this is very much commonplace in journalism, whereas, again, 10 years ago, it was sort of coming up. But now what we call visual open source investigations are more commonplace. So I want to talk to you specifically about one project that we work on, and I want to do that for two reasons. One of them is that one of them is that one of the things that makes Bellingcat innovative is the fact that we work with folks, like you folks, like people in general, right? So this isn't a bad thing, but a lot of news organizations are very insulated, right? You have to be a journalist in order to work on a CBC investigation. You have to be a staff member in the New York Times in order to publish with the New York Times. What we do at Bellingcat is we open our doors and we say, hey, do you want to help with a project? Like, is there something interesting that you're noticing in your community? Maybe you found a video on Telegram that shows a massacre, and maybe you figured out where it took place. Let us know. Let's work together. We'll help you develop this idea. You can pitch it to our editor. So we have lots of open spaces online, they're all digital, where we welcome people to come and learn from us and learn from each other on how to conduct open source investigations. We have a Discord server that has about 35,000 members. Anybody on Discord? Yes, I knew it. You guys are my people. Discord's great because you can set up a server. We have one. It's got 35,000 people, and there's journalists from all over the world there, and also just people who, they might be dentists during the day, or office workers, or graduate students, and they're interested in this thing called open source research. And what do you mean that you can find videos of war crimes on Telegram? And what do you mean that if I analyze them in a particular way, I can actually discover where they were captured? And if I do that, then maybe there can be some accountability, because if you discover where a massacre took place, you can ask questions about who did it and when, et cetera, right? It's a really powerful idea. So since day one, Bellingcat has been an innovator and a pioneer in this idea of bringing people into the fold and going, let's work on things that are important together, right? Starting in earnest last year, we formalized what we call the Bellingcat volunteer community. We used to call it the Global Authentication Project, which is GAP. And so the lawyers didn't like that, because we were also talking about the GAP and going to the GAP. And it's like, no, it's not the clothing store. We had to change the name. We now call it the Bellingcat Volunteer Community. And this is a formal space where we accept volunteers. And again, this can be anybody. Anybody can apply. You fill out a form. You tell us what you're interested in terms of open source research. And so we'll get folks going, I really love flight tracking. I'm a plane spotter, and I love aircraft, and I love tracking aircraft. Maybe I can help you guys track military aircraft. If there's a military operation going, or if you're doing a corruption investigation, I can help you track the airplanes of powerful people, all right? So that's an example of somebody who might apply to become a member of our volunteer community. We have a wonderful volunteer coordinator who screens all of the applications, and then she lets people in. We have about 100 volunteers at the moment. And we have them help us with projects. Sometimes the volunteers will propose projects themselves. So they'll say, hey, I have an idea for an article, or I'm finding out something interesting about this. Maybe there's an investigation that we can do here. So it's not just a space where we ask the volunteers for help. We give them a space also to work on projects and get help from us, really, to uncover some wrongdoing in the world. I want to give you an example of maybe the biggest project that we have going. It's what we call the Ukraine Civilian Harm Project. You can go to ukraine.bellingcat.com and you'll see a big map. This is a screenshot of that map. On that map, there are 867 purple dots. Each one of those dots corresponds to an incident, what we call an incident of civilian harm in Ukraine, starting with the full-scale invasion in February of 2022. People in Ukraine have cell phones. And as soon as the Russian invasion started, they started to record the atrocities that were happening in their neighborhoods. Some of them were massacres, Bucha, you know, people have heard about, hopefully. But not just that. One of the types of incidents that we're really interested in is the use of cluster munitions. Cluster munitions are a popular weapon in the Russian arsenal, and if you're not sure what a cluster munition is, it's a kind of a rocket that you launch, and the rocket in flight opens up and it drops sometimes dozens of small bombs. So it's not one bomb, it's many small bombs. They cover a wide area, and then the rocket separates into 3 parts and then lands in different areas. So cluster munitions are not supposed to be used, as with any other weapon, to target civilian infrastructure or civilians. One of the things that we started to notice, going on Telegram and going on X and going on social media, from the very beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, was that we were finding lots of remnants of cluster munitions beside schools, beside hospitals, beside, you know, in people's front yards. And so what we started to do was collect all of those pictures and all of those videos from social media. And what we wanted to do was plot them on a map. To take a picture that you have on social media and verify it, that's a term that we use. There's a methodology that you have to employ. Geolocation, kernel location. I can teach a whole class on how to do those 2 things. We try to do it in 10 seconds. Geolocation is when you watch a video or a picture and you determine exactly, precisely where it was taken. Not generally, where you could say that picture was taken precisely like right here. Not here, not over here. He was standing right here when you took that picture. You can do that with lots of practice and if you know the skills. Kernel location is the same, but in time. So that's a really difficult thing to do with one picture. It's really difficult to do with 867 images. And in fact, we have thousands of them. And so we have recruited volunteers who are the most dedicated people that I've ever met. And in their free time, they have spent the last several years now geolocating pictures of civilian harm in Ukraine. And so every one of these dots on, oh, there's some echo on every one of these dots on the map corresponds to, again, incidents that have taken place in Ukraine. Here's an example of what happens when you click on one of the dots. You will see a description of the event, okay? And that information is out there for anyone to access. So there's a journalistic purpose as well. But also, this could be potential evidence of a war crime, right? So we know that the ICC, we know that Ukrainian tribunals and other international tribunals are examining open source evidence, including this data set, for potential evidence of war crimes. And again, this is a project that is fueled entirely by volunteers. We have a custom-built platform of 2 really amazing and brilliant researchers from Stanford built for us from the ground up. It is a platform that allows for the collaboration on a project like this of many people. So you log into the platform, every incident is tagged. So here we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 incidents. And so any volunteer who worked on this project can log in, look at an incident, and there's a space for them to work on an incident together. So there's a bit of a chat room. So if you click on an incident, a chat room opens up, and then suddenly you're collaborating with researchers and you're going, okay, so I found this video this morning. Where was it? I think it was in Kharkiv somewhere. Okay, how do you know? And there's like an exchange that happens, right? I think I'm out of time, so I'll say this. This is really exciting because when you have a data set like this, there's a lot that you can learn. I'll give you an example. This is the tail section of a cluster munition. So again, the cluster munition flies up, it splits into a couple pieces, and then the pieces keep flying, and then they land somewhere. So this is the tail section of a cluster munition, or the rocket section. This is the cargo section. So all of the little bombs are there. They were there, they dispersed, and then the thing landed. And then here's another cargo section that landed somewhere else. So if you are able to find those pictures, which you can, anyone can because they're on the internet everywhere, and you're able to determine precisely where that picture was taken through geolocation, you can learn where that rocket was fired from, because the way that the cluster munition remnants enter the ground is on a trajectory from the point of launch to the point of impact. So in fact, every cluster munition remnant, again, there's like hundreds of pictures of these, point to the place from which they were launched, right? That way, right? So if you geolocate the image, you can say this rocket came from that direction. And you can do that with any image of a cluster munition that you find in Ukraine. And that is super powerful because if you know what kind of type of rocket that is, which we do, because you can Google Russian cluster munition arsenal, and there's military manuals that will show you all of that information, you know what range those rockets have. And if you know the range and the direction, you can open up Google Earth Pro, which is free, and maybe some of you have played with it, and you can map out the potential point of origin of these rockets. So this is just an example. It's a quick mock-up. If you geolocate a cluster munition to a particular place in Kharkiv, for example, you can estimate the bottom range and the top range of where it was fired from. And you can correlate this data with satellite imagery, some of which is free, to see if there were Russian military units here, right? If you have that information, you can look for more open source information and find out which units they were. And if you're trying to establish culpability for potential war crimes, like the use of cluster munitions in civilian areas, you've just got a way to figure out who's responsible, right? So again, super important project, right? And it's being fueled entirely by a very dedicated group of volunteers who are really busy with their daily lives, but on the weekends and in the evenings, they say, I want to help with this because this is really important. So with that, I will stop and go to the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Giancarlo. Round of applause. Incredible technology and also that group of very dedicated volunteers. So going into Q&A, the way we'll do is that we'll do 3 in person and then 3 online. And online, if you want, you can put a Q in the chat if you have a question, if you want to speak it out loud or type it in. But we're going to start in person. Anyone have a question? Starting off, okay, we have 1, 2, 3. We'll do 3. And also, fun, cool fact, you could press the microphone button in front of you in person, and then you can speak
sweet.
into that. Could you do it?
Who am I starting with? Yeah, so I'm gonna hold it here, and then
I can also hold it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, everyone can hear me?
Yeah.
Cool, excellent. So you mentioned that you have this idea of like chronolocation and geolocation, and you have like a whole process that a volunteer has to go through. How do you verify that volunteer actually did go through that whole process?
Very good question. So there is a staff member at Bellingcat. There's several staff members whose job it is to do that. So the volunteers, first of all, are really good. Some of them have been doing this for years, and so they're excellent. But before an incident can appear on the map as a verified incident, and here is, we can all see it, it is checked by Bellingcat staff members. And there's a kind of a peer review that happens. And, you know, some of those threads and the incidents are super long. There's cases from 2 years ago that we haven't been able to solve because you have to be able to prove conclusively to the peer reviewer, the staff member, that you're correct. And if we're not 100% sure, we don't put it on the map. So that's the system. There are Bellingcat staff members whose job it is to look at all the work and go, yeah, this is excellent. I agree with it, and I'm gonna put it up.
Hi, thank you for your work first. I guess it seems like you're using a lot of very advanced techniques. So for volunteers to join, they might be tech savvy, but might not know all those techniques. Like, do you offer training, or people kind of learn on the job? How does that work?
Yeah, very good question as well. So there's a lot of learning on the job. The volunteer community has what we call volunteer guides. That's not the term, sorry. There's a kind of a special role. It's like a community mentor. So it's a volunteer who's been there for a while, and we pair them up with new volunteers. And so part of that process is them kind of helping them get along with these methodologies. But also we're working on a way to, Bellingcat conducts a lot of trainings. So we train lots of folks, newsrooms, organizations, how to do this kind of work. And we have in the past, and we're going to continue to have volunteers attend those trainings just so that they can, learn how to do that work. I will say that a lot of people come to us with those skills already. Has anyone played GeoGuessr? Okay, like a lot of people kind of, 10 years ago, it was like, what, you can do this? But now it's kind of popular, right? So a lot of folks come and they know, yeah, I play GeoGuessr, I'm pretty good at that. And it's very similar.
Yeah, I guess I was curious, like the open source info,
how it actually gets into the system in the first place? Like,
Yeah.
do you kind of do automated analysis of like the fire hose of data coming in on Twitter?
Yeah.
Or is it all manually submitted by like networks of people, or how does
Yeah.
that work?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, very good. It's all by hand. What when I say by hand, so it's manually. So the team that works on this at Bellingcat has a rotating shift system. So we'll go, okay, today is Monday. It's my day to park myself on Telegram. And, you know, out of Ukraine, it's primarily Telegram where we're seeing these videos come from. And their job is to pull incidents out of Telegram or, you know, wherever it could be and put them in the database. So there's a rotating system. Of course, we're missing incidents, right? I mean, but there is that system in place. We have a day and we have a researcher, and their job that day is to make sure that they're pulling the relevant information and putting it in Atlos so that volunteers can start working on it and the whole system can progress.
Okay, lovely. We're going to switch back to online to see if there's any online questions as well. And then we're going to switch back to in-person too. Thomas, is there any online questions we can start going through?
Yeah, this question just came in from Jason. Are you using AI or ML to extract, process, or analyze or validate data? Is that something that's on your roadmap?
Thanks for that question. That's a very good question. We are always, so the holy grail of open source visual investigations is an AI platform that you can give it a picture and it goes, yeah, it's exactly like this is where it is, right? Geolocation can take weeks to do. Like a very skilled human geolocator could take weeks to geolocate an image. So the holy grail is like an AI thing that just kind of does it by magic, right? Just this morning, actually, in our Slack, there was a couple of Bellingcat researchers who were experimenting with a new one. It's called, God, I'm not going to remember the name. But there's something that came out recently that we think is pretty good. And so they were experimenting with it, right? So, you know, could there be an AI platform in 3 years or 2 years or 5 years that is like a perfect geolocator? Sure, maybe. We're not using them at the moment, but we're always looking to see where, you know, that technology might be helpful. I'm old school, and so I always want to do things by hand, and I'm just really skeptical and tired of AI stuff. So I'd like to still do stuff by hand, even if we had a platform that says, hey, I'm 100% sure it's here, we'd always like want to check ourselves.
If we have any other online questions,
Yes,
feel free to also
another one from, oh, so this is from Lego. Geolocation AI, Niantic, the Ingress Pokemon Go people are working on something like this as a product.
Yes, so I'm laughing because the head of Niantic, so we had an event in Amsterdam, Bellingcat held Bellingfest, we call it, in Amsterdam back in November, and he was there and he gave a talk precisely on this. And then there was some news reporting that came out of that. If you look up Niantic, Bellingcat, there might be an article about this. But yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, Lego.
if there's any others online, and then if not, we'll go back in person.
Yeah, I guess we can go back to in person. No others in the chat so far.
Friends in person. So I'll come on the microphone. And again, click for the little microphone in the room.
Hi. So I would imagine like moderating all these war crime images can be traumatic for like the moderators. How does Bellingcat support like your staff? And
Yeah,
that kind of...
very good question. Thank you. Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, I mean, there's no way to say it. You're looking at the absolute worst things that could happen all the time. It definitely has an impact on everyone who works on this. Everyone at Bellingcat has access to a specialized service for folks who work with traumatic content. And so that includes the volunteers. So the volunteers have sessions with trauma specialists who work with them on this. Now, I should say that the volunteers do not access graphic imagery through the platform. So there's a triage system where the Bellingcat researcher whose job it is to pull the videos on the Monday, if a video is graphic, it is flagged as graphic in the system, and the volunteers do not see that video or that picture. So we don't have them work on graphic content. We only have them work on pictures like the one that I showed you where, you know, there's no graphic content. Having said that, I've done this work for a couple of years. You don't know what's gonna hit you. And something that at first sight might not seem graphic might actually end up having an impact on you. So that's one of the reasons why we make this available to them. yeah, it's a very, very, maybe the #1 concern is making sure that people are okay, because this work is heavy.
Thank you.
Thanks again. I'm wondering, do you kind of make an assumption that the images that are available online are trustworthy, or do you consider the burden of proof to be on you and the team to kind of make a determination?
Yeah.
Particularly, I'm interested to know if AI images being so
Yeah.
realistic right now, if that has
Yeah.
changed anything drastically.
Yeah.
Like recently, anything I've read from the CBC's investigative team is just about how many different perspectives they have to have
Yeah.
information from to be able to make a confident determination that
Yeah.
something is not AI.
Yeah.
And that has just, to me, it's amazing how the burden of proof has
Yeah.
kind of become much harder.
For
But
sure, yeah. Excellent question. So the short answer is that what we call the image verification process, that again involves geolocation and kernel location, that's always been in effect. So that's the first thing that kind of Bellingcat became famous for. Like, oh, they know how to check if an image really is from a particular place at a particular time, right? And so that hasn't changed. From day one, Bellingcat has said, if you see a picture or a video on the internet, do not assume that it's from the place and the time of the person who showed it. You have to check for yourself. And the way that you check is you geolocate and you kernel locate, right? That's why I said every purple dot on the map is there only after several people, the volunteers and the staff member, have said, yes, I can guarantee you 100%, and it is a 100% method, that it was recorded precisely right here. Kernel location is a little bit trickier for reasons that I can get into maybe during the breakout groups. But that's always the standard. It's never assume this is correct. It's the opposite. Assume it's false, and then try to see where it's from, right? On the AI image thing, the same principle, as far as sort of the technology is now, the same principles apply, because if I give you a hyper-realistic, photorealistic image of a cluster munition in Ukraine, you look at it and you would go, okay, let me geolocate this. You won't be able to, because that place does not exist, right? Like the AI image platforms are creating places that look very real, but they're not creating like the street corner in Kharkiv where, right? It's all very realistic-like, but it's not real. So what you might end up doing is trying to geolocate a picture for 6 months and you never find it because in fact it doesn't exist. It's not there. We've seen some of that already. The one thing I'll say about AI images, because you asked about the impact on the workflow, for this kind of work, we're seeing some of that already a little bit, but it's relatively easy to work through. By far, like far and away, by several orders of magnitude more, the #1 place where AI images and AI videos are having an impact is in the creation of non-consensual pornography. That's like, there's no discussion. That's like way up here. That's the #1 use case, unfortunately. And we see that all over the internet. And then very, very, very distant second place, it's like political stuff and, you know, trying to trick people like Bellingcat researchers. So it's a huge plague, but not in this sense, in the AI non-consensual pornography sense.
Aside from Telegram, what are some other tools or sources that you use that you recommend people can
Yeah, that's a good question. So the answer is that it depends on what conflict you're looking at. Because what you want to do is you want to say, there's a thing happening. So the people who live there, where do they hang out online, right? And it just so happens that in Eastern Europe, Telegram is the one place, right? If there was a protest, like the Black Lives Matter protest, that was all on Twitter, because people in the US back then used Twitter a lot, right? If there was a protest in China, it wouldn't be Telegram, it wouldn't be Twitter, it would be Weibo, it would be, like a Chinese social media, right? So the answer is it depends on the place. Having said that, Telegram is excellent. It's really well known and used also in the Gaza conflict. I would say it's probably the primary method of disseminating information as well. And as a social media platform or messaging platform, Telegram is very researcher friendly. For reasons that I can get into during the breakout groups, or you can come ask me later. If you're covering a conflict and the main point of dissemination is Telegram, you're in a lot of luck, because Telegram is very easy to work with. It's very friendly for researchers.